محمد رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الفاسفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Before I start tonight's Majlis, I'd like to take this opportunity, thanks and gratitude to the HIC community for extending this invitation and inviting me for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, to come and address the mu'mineen of this community. And indeed, it was my honor and pleasure, and inshallah, look forward to meeting and getting to know more and more of you, inshallah, in future. And if anything that was said which did not make sense, it was not because you didn't understand, it was because of my lack of ability to explain it properly. And if it was anything was said which was offensive, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize in advance. Tonight, I recited this ayat from Surah Al-Imran as it's the conclusion. And tonight was the result of our 11 days ibadat. The majority is missing out on the result that was to be given. Did the hard work the first 10 nights. Tonight was the litmus test, where whoever shows up shows the commitment that they have, that they're not limiting the aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada up until the day of Ashur. And then once the day of Ashur is over, and that's it, هَذَا فِرَاقٌ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ, that this is a separation between me and you, O Hussein, until next year. That is why I'm one of the opponents of Salam-e-Akhir. Now, it's a very beautiful kalam. It's recited all over the world, especially on the day of Ashur, where it was originally recited, and the lyrics of it, which pretty much are bidding farewell. Salam un khak nashino pe, salam un pe, and this is like, this is our last salam to you. That if we live until next year, inshallah, we will be again present. But until then, this is our salam-e-akhir. No. this actually, while it's a beautiful kalam and I love and I enjoy listening to it, and it's heart-wrenching, the words and the lyrics of it, but it goes against the ziyarat that we recite every single day. What do we recite in the ziyarat? We say, Allahumma la taj'alu akhir al-ahd min ziyaratikum. Oh Allah, do not make this to be the last of the occasions upon which I do the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. So it goes against the spirit that we're not separating from Sayyid al-Shuhada. We're not separating from Ashura. We're not separating from this azah. This azah never ends. Yes, it picks up its colors and picks up the momentum as soon as the days of the shahadat of Imam Hussein come close by. Because the shahadat of Hussein is something which teaches us many lessons. One of the lessons that we could derive from the shahadat of Sayyid al-Shuhada is that it provides for us this individual learning. It provides for us the social learning. The suffering endured by Sayyid al-Shuhada has lessons individually, has lessons for our social life, has lessons when it comes to our worldly life, and as well as, of course, our outwardly life. When the elegies are recited, they are means of bringing you closer to the tragedy by which you get ready and prepare to do anything for the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You get ready. A lot of time these majalis don't serve that purpose, but the moment you hear the Noha, the moment you hear the Marsiya, and the beautiful lyrics and the presenting of those, right away your hearts melt with it, and now you're geared and prepared to go ahead and do whatever it is that Imam Hussein is asking you to do. And of course, Imam Hussein is going to ask you to do something which is in line with this Shariat, in line with this Islam. So therefore, this should not be a farewell by any stretch of the imagination. Ashura and the sacrifice teach us a great deal. There are many prongs, benefits. Now, I'm not saying that we come to this first shahada for any benefit. We're coming here with khulus because of the sacrifice. And even if we were not followers of Maktab Ahl Tashayyu, just hearing the musibat of Sayyid al-Shuhada, musibat of his children, would bring you to the farsh. That's why you see many folks from other walks of life who are not even Muslims, who are not even Shia, non-Muslims, Hindus, when they hear about the tragedy, and many now make their way to Karbala every year on the occasion of Arba'in, right? Because the story is so captivating. And it's not something which is, a fiction. No, it's something which is a reality. That actually took place. When people see similar stories, now of course nothing could be similar to what happened in Karbala, but when they see similarities in occasions and things and the oppression that happens around them, they're able to better relate to the message of Imam Hussein. So therefore, this is the best institution that you and I could have ever imagined and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. So we don't really need an incentive to hold these majalis. The fact that we are here for Imam Hussein is enough. We don't really need an extra benefit from it. We don't come here because of this shedding of the tears, because of the matam that we do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us Jannah. As many of the riwayat say, Man baka wa abka wa tabaki wajabat lahul Jannah, right? Riwayat of Kamilu Ziyarat are filled with that. Many such riwayat where you hear and you listen to these words of Ma'asumin when they speak about it. In fact, I had shared a hadith over here on Sunday morning where a lot less of you were here on that Sunday morning. But so therefore, it's worth sharing it again. Hopefully that on Sunday mornings, a lot more of you can take part and be part of the salat which takes place in the morning. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, Nafasul mahmum. The relationship, I don't know, maybe I may have mentioned it one of the majalis here as well, so pardon if I am repeating. Imam said, the similarity that Ashura and the similarity that Muharram and Majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada has with Ramadan. You hear this in Ramadan, right? That anfasukum fihe tasbih wa nawmukum fihe ibadah. Your breaths are glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your sleep is ibadat. Now both are involuntary actions. You don't breathe with consciousness, right? You just breathe. There's something which is happening. Sometimes you don't realize you're breathing. Sometimes your breath gets faster and faster. At that occasion, you start realizing something's wrong. But normally speaking, you don't even feel about it. You don't even think about it. Similarly, sleeping is necessary for your, survival. Without it, deprivation of sleep can lead to many illnesses. So both of these actions are what? Are involuntary. Physicians sitting over here, I don't want to step over my boundaries of, why we fall asleep. There's this reticular activating system in the back of the brain right here, which discharges, this sort of charge that comes from it. And as we start to get tired and lend the hours, the discharge becomes ever so slow. When it becomes slower and slower and slower, this RAS, the reticular activating system, that gets slower and does not send as many messages. Therefore, what happens? We doze off and then we fall asleep. So it's something which is a human necessity. Both of these things, breathing and sleeping. Guess what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala counts these two to be, one is the glorification of Allah, tasbih, the other one to be ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now look at what Imam is saying. Sixth Imam is saying in Muharram, he said, nafasul mahmum li'ulmina tasbihun. The nafas, the breath. When you feel sad, mahmum from hammu gham, right? When you feel this gham. In gham, when you're feeling sad and your breath, you breathe along with it. During that gham of ours, so whenever you hear the masaib, you start weeping and crying. When you hear the tragedy, you start breathing heavily. And then you breathe at that time. Imam said, nafasul mahmum. At the time of ham and gham, your breaths are considered to be what? Tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you hear the masaib of Imam Hussein, or all of the imams, and you breathe at that time while you're weeping and crying and wailing, he said that is considered to be nafasul mahmum li'ulmina. Upon the tragedies that took place upon us, it's considered to be tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa hammuhu lana ibadah. And then your actual grief for us, when you show grief for our sake, that is considered to be the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like your sleep. Allahumma salli ala. The Imam capped this hadith off with something beautiful. He said, Yajib an yaktuba hadha al-hadith bid-dhahab. It is incumbent upon you, you should go ahead and write this hadith with gold. That's how important this hadith is. Hang it around your neck if you have to, because that's where you'll see the miracles and the karamat come from, these words of Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. So, why do we commemorate the gham? Do we need an incentive? As I said, no, we don't need incentive. Do we need benefits? No, we don't need any benefits. Do we need rewards? Are we hungry for the reward and are we greedy for the reward of the Majlis of Syed al-Shuhada? No, we don't need any of those things. Then why is it that we commemorate Ashura? Why is it that we commemorate the Majalis and we have this ayyam or these ayyam the way only we do and others don't? A lot of time people pose questions. They say, well, Imam Hussein died on that one day, day of Ashur, 10th of Muharram. You should commemorate on that day and that should be it. And then you can commemorate on the day of his Jahlum Arba'in. Although there's no precedent of commemorating Jahlum, because no one else's Jahlum was ever commemorated. Not Rasulullah's, not Amirul Mu'mineen, not Imam Hassan's, only Imam Hussein's. So you should only limit, okay, we'll give you 10 days. From the beginning of Muharram until the Ashur, you should limit your azad to these 10 days. Why do you have to drag it until the beginning of month of Rabiul Awwal? 2 months and 8 days. This must be a product of ulama and the scholars, so that they come and they give lectures and speeches, the means of their financial means and whatnot. The answer is no, 2 months and 8 days is still not enough. If you were to weep for Imam Hussein for an entire life, it still would not be enough. And I'll give you an example. Imam Hussein's shahadat is extraordinary. Imam's blood irrigated the drying tree of this religion. The tree was drying up. It needed irrigation. But water was not enough. Imam's blood was needed. Imam irrigated it with his own blood and the blood of his family. If it wasn't for Imam Hussein, the religion would cease to exist. Rasul said it when he said, Husainun minni wa ana min Hussein. This religion would not have existed. We mentioned it before. If madhab is Muhammadiyul Huduth, it is Husainiyul Baqa. If Muhammad is the reason that our Prophet is the one who brought this religion, Hussein is the one who protected this religion. Otherwise, the values were changed. You look at what Rasulullah left in the 11th year after Hijrah, and look what happens within the 50 years' time. 50 years' time, that the same, if Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were, God, na'udhu God forbid, were evil, we understand. And even then you would say, well, they're the children of Rasulullah. They should not be harmed like this. But they were Sayyada Shabab Ahl Jannah. People knew about them, how good or their personality and what their maqam is. Even knowing that, community does not stand up to protect the blood of Hassan and Mushtaba and protect the blood of Hussein ibn Ali. That shows you the values have changed. So therefore, this reform was needed. Imam Hussein brought about that revolution so that religion survives. His death is extraordinary. His shahadat is extraordinary. So therefore, weeping for him for 2.5 months is still not enough. What's the proof? Someone who died a natural death. Hazrat Khadija. Someone who died a natural death. Hazrat Abu Talib. Both were the strongest of the supporters of Rasulullah. But both left this world, with natural death. There was not a shahadat per se where there was something that was given to them which caused them to die. Although a lot had to do with the suffering of Shayba Abi Talib. But after their death, did Rasulullah say weep for them for 1 day? Okay, 1 week is enough. 10 days. They both died naturally. But because of their impact on Islam, how they morally and financially supported Rasulullah's product and his mission, Rasulullah called that entire year to be Amul Huzn. So when Abu Talib and Khadija salamullah alaiha left this world, Rasulullah said, don't weep for 1 day or 1 week or 10 days. No, Amul Huzn. The entire year is the year of grief. So when someone gives their sacrifice and life for the sake of the religion, you think 2.5 months is a lot for them? No, it still is less for them. Even that is not enough if you were to weep for Imam Hussein. So then, question arises, why do we do the dhikr of Karbala? I'll mention 5 points before I'll bring you to close. And by the way, the reason I recited this ayat, I'll explain that towards the end. Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Number one reason why do we do the dhikr of Karbala? Because history serves as lesson and admonition. And so, not just for mu'mineen, even for the apostles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this ayat of Surah Hud 120, He gives Rasulullah a reason why He mentions and does the dhikr of the previous Anbiya. Why does Rasulullah need the dhikr of previous Anbiya? Why does he need to be equipped with the stories of the previous Anbiya? Why does he need to know what happened to Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Nuh, Hazrat Adam, Hazrat Isa, Hazrat Ayyub, Hazrat Zakaria, Hazrat Yusuf? Why does he need to know that? Quran gives explanation in Surah Hud, ayat number 120. It says, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. That's the first reason. Oh Rasul, do you know why we relate these stories to you? Whatever we relate to you of the accounts of the apostles before you are those by which we strengthen your heart. So if Rasulullah hears the story of Hazrat Ibrahim, his heart is strengthened. If Rasulullah hears the story of Hazrat Musa and his struggles, Hazrat Job, Ayyub, and other Anbiya, what does it do? Provide strength to Rasulullah. And then the ayat continues, وَجَاكَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَقِّ وَمَوْعِظَةٌ وَالذِّكْرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. While this is strengthening your heart, O Rasul, what does it do at the end? and has come to you in this surah the truth and the advice and the admonition for those who are mu'mineen, for those who are faithful. The reason Allah mentions the story of previous Anbiya, to strengthen the heart of Rasul and to provide lesson for you and I. The reason we do the dhikr of Karbala is so that admonition and lessons can be derived from it as well. That is directly in relation with this ayat of Quran. Second reason, why do we do the dhikr of Karbala and Sayyid al-Shuhada? So that we can uphold the symbols of God. Quran gives us the instruction. What does it say? وَذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Ayat number 32 from Surah Hajj. And indeed, these are the sha'air and the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do these symbols of Allah do to you? They bring about taqwa in your heart. They become the means of taqwa in your heart. So when we think about the sha'air of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are some of the sha'air? What are some of the symbols? Quran says, Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'air Allah. So Safa and Marwa, the two mountains are what? Symbols of Allah. Abi Zamzam is the symbol of Allah. Hajar Aswad is the symbol of Allah. The Qurbani that you give, wal Budun, wa Qala'id, all are considered to be the symbols of Allah. Why? They remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When an animal which is used for Qurbani and the band around the neck of this animal counts as the sha'air of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you think Hussein is not a sha'air of Allah? No, Hussein and his Qurbani is not considered to be one of the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there is the symbol of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the Zat of Hussein ibn Ali. So why do we do the dhikr of Karbala? So that we can uphold the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third, why do we do the dhikr of Ahlul-bayt and dhikr of Karbala? So that we can fulfill the promise that we made with Rasulullah. What promise did we make with Rasulullah? People wanted to compensate Rasulullah for all the hard work that he had done throughout the 23 years of propagation. You cannot pay Rasulullah back. There's no amount of money that you can pay Rasulullah that will compensate for all the hard work that he did for 23 years for you. All the difficulties that he endured on your behalf. But if you insist, Quran says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا, Surah Shura 23. لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. If you want to do something for Rasulullah, you can't pay him. No amount of money will pay off the debts. But the only way that will come close to paying off Rasulullah is mawaddat fil qurba. So that you show love and you honor the family of Rasulullah. In the 61st year Hijrah, that is not honoring the family of Rasulullah. Today, attacking the Julus-e-Aza and Majalis-e-Aza and saying fatawa against it is not showing the love to the family of Rasulullah. There's only one firqa, there's only one madhab, there's only one maktab that is fulfilling that promise that was made to Rasulullah, and that is by upholding the majalis and doing the dhikr of Ahlul-bayt and showing their love towards them. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's three reasons. Number four. Fourth reason, why do we do the dhikr of Karbala? Quran. I keep on quoting these ayat of Quran. Surah Nisa 148. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to raise your voice for Mazloom. What does the ayah say? La yuhibbullahu al-jahra bis-su'e min al-qawli illa man zulim. Allah does not like you to disclose anyone's evil conduct in his speech. Allah does not want you to open up if someone has done something wrong, except by someone who has been wronged. So if there's someone who has been wronged, they have been the subject to zulm, then speak about it. You have been given this authority by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat and many other ayat of Quran. Allah does not like you to go ahead and speak about anyone, but especially the exception is given when it comes to Muslim. Can there be anyone bigger as far as the Mazlumiyat is concerned than those who were present with Imam Hussein in Karbala? There's no. No one can top the mazlumiyat of those who are present with Imam Hussein. So that gives you number 4, incentive and the reason why do you do the dhikr of Karbala. And number 5, lastly, why do we do the dhikr? Why do we remind people of the tragedy? Because of Amr and Nahi. Quran says, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrajat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You are the best of the nations that has ever been brought forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give us the status of being the best of the nation because we are from good lineage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not call us to be the best of the nations because of our color of our skin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not call us best of the nations because of any reason. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrajat linnas. You're the best nations ever brought forth. Why? Only because of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. So what we do when we do the dhikr of Imam Hussein, when we do the dhikr of Imam Hussein, we remind people of Amr and Nahi, and that is the maqsad of Karbala. So here I gave you 5 ayat and 5 reasons. Not that you would ever need to prove anything. We don't need to prove it to anyone. We don't do any of these actions to show off to anyone. There's no riyakari. There's no vainglory. There's no showing off. We do this sincerely to please Sayyid al-Shuhada. Sincerely to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't ask for any reward either. We're not looking for reward from Majlis Allah. I attended 11 majalis. Oh Allah, grant me Jannat. No. How good is this ibadat of yours? In fact, you should not be having the similar thought when it comes to your wajibat. When Imam Hassan Mushtaba alayhi salatu wasalam heard his mother make dua all night long for others, he said, "Oh mother, how come you didn't make dua for yourself?" She said, "I heard your grandfather say to me, Al-jar thumma dar. First you take care of others, neighbors, and then you make dua for yourself." But then she said another thing on top of that. He said, if I do an ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and right away I ask, "Oh Allah, give me this," because I just prayed. Now this looks like, those who are mazdur, those who are doing, handiwork, those who go out and work and then earn money for it. I cleaned your lawn, give me money for it. I cleaned your driveway, give me money for it. I did this job for you, pay me. He said, that's what it seems like. If I do ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then right away I say, "Oh Allah, give me this, give me this, give me this." So therefore, even for wajib ibadat, Ahlul-bayt are those who are not looking for any reward. They're not looking for reward for ibadat. Similarly, this gathering that we have, we're not looking for any reward. But there are benefits definitely that come about. So subtle that you don't even realize sometimes. You don't come here necessarily for any benefits anyway. But because you're part of this azan, there are certain benefits that happen so subtly, you don't even realize it. One of the messages or one of the benefits that happen is the tarbiyat of insan. Without noticing, you see, by hearing the stories of Imam Hussein and the fadail and the masaib, there's this nurturing, there's this rearing and tarbiyat that is taking place. Yes, it increases your knowledge. When you sit with others, it gives you a lesson of how we're all equal to each other. You don't think about it. I'm sitting over here, no one can sit over here. I'm sitting over there, and how dare someone else sits over there. You come and you pick a place and you sit anywhere. Why? We're all brothers and sisters in this. And we are equal in this regard. So you don't feel any sort of tabaka bandi, that I'm superior, they are inferior. So I should sit here and they should sit over there. No. These are the lessons that are being taught so subtly without even making any effort. What does this azah and first azah do to you? Makes you humble. Gives you better akhlaq. Let me bring you back to the ayat of Quran. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you, in congregation, and do not cause any discord and disunity. I'll just say one word about it. About unity and discord, one word. And then I'll move on to the ayat. You can have two brothers. They don't necessarily need to live in the same house. They can live in separate houses, but they don't have to hate each other. That's it. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. You can live in separate houses, but you can still treat each other with respect and honor. That's all. What does the ayat says after that? وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Remember the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala onto you. إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً. When you were enemies of one another. What did Allah do? فَعَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Ayah 103 of Al Imran. فَعَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. He united your hearts. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And because of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you became what? Brothers and sisters. You became brethren. There are things which can never separate us. And that is, we are brothers in faith. Right? Either you're equal in humanity or you're brother in faith. That's what Imam Ali said. So that should always be kept. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala twice in this ayat uses the word ni'mat. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Remember the ni'mat of Allah unto you. إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً. When you were enemies. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And you became, because of the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brothers. Twice the word ni'mat has appeared. What does that tell you? Is Allah bragging about the favors that He has bestowed upon us? Allah can brag all He wants to. He has all the bragging rights. It's you and I who are not allowed to brag for anything. Even if I do some good to someone, I'm not allowed to brag and boast. Why? That good that I have done is not mine. Zatan. It is the tawfiq given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I've done a favor to someone, I don't need to pound my chest and brag and boast about it. Why? That is anti-Islam. Why? Because action which entails bragging becomes nullified. I'll give you an example. لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. See if our team can find this ayat. I don't know the number off the top of my head. لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. Do not nullify your charities by bragging and boasting. You gave money, now you started what? Bragging about it. The moment you brag about it, it's null and void. It says, قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ خَيْرٌ مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ يَتْبَعُهَا الْأَذَى. A good word is better than that charity which follows up with what? Bragging and boasting. So when you brag and when you boast, when you pound your chest that I've done good, you've nullified all your actions. In fact, that is the reason there are some etiquettes of sitting in the bargah of Ma'sumin, Aimma Athar, and Rasulullah. The first few ayat of Surah Hujurat. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. La tarfa'u asfatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. Don't raise your voices on the voice of Rasulullah. Ayat ends with what? An tahbata amalakum. It says, La tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasuleh. Don't venture ahead of Allah and His apostle. Whatever they have taught you, stay within that limit. Don't go beyond that. Start doing your own ijtihad. Rasulullah says, we're out of the city, break your fast. We're not breaking our fast. We went to Battle of Badr, 17th of Ramadan. Rasulullah left the city. He said, our fast is gone. You can eat. People started questioning, we're not breaking. Like we question, Maulana, why is my fast broken? I don't feel any pain. I can travel all day long. I can go from one state to another state. I don't feel the difficulty. It's not about difficulty. Because if it was about difficulty, the one who is a frequent traveler, they have to fast. They have to pray full, regardless of where they may be. It's about obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's about ita'at to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That how do you fulfill the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So Allah uses ni'mat twice in that ayah. He said, you do ni'mat to someone, don't brag about it. It'll get nullified. When I bestow a favor upon someone, I can do it. Because every good emerges from me. When you do good, it is not emerging from you. It is coming through me to you. So therefore, you're not allowed to brag and boast when you do something good. So here, one of the other things that we get from this Majlis Aza is the akhlaqiyat. If the Farsh Aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada is not making us a better person, then I don't know what will. If it's not giving us better akhlaq to treat each other with respect and honor, then I don't know what will. Respect and honor is not just for the elderly. There was a man that came to Imam and he said, oh Imam, after attaining some ilm and knowledge, and that's what ilm does to you. That's what knowledge does to you. It messes up your head. It makes you think that you are on top of the world. He says, after attaining some ilm, now I don't find myself respecting anyone. Because anyone I look at, they're less than me. Because they don't have the same ilm that I do. I'm PhD, double PhD. I have a ijtihad degree and I have this and I have that. I don't look at people with respect anymore. Imam said, easy. Treat your elders like your father. You don't disrespect your father regardless of how illiterate your father is, right? No matter how illiterate your father is, you still respect him. He said, treat your elders like your father. And also, because they have lived longer than you. They've been alive for longer than you. Your elders, if someone is 20 years older than me, they've lived a longer time. Meaning what? They've done more goods than I have. He said, treat your youngsters like you would treat your own kids. Regardless of how mischievous your own child is, at the end of the day, you still hug him, you still love him. He said, treat others' kids the same way. And they have an edge on you. The fact that they're younger than you. If a child is 20, 30 years younger than me, they've had lesser time sinning than I have. And then those who are same age as yours, treat them like your brothers. How you treat your brothers, treat them like your brothers. And also, they have an edge on you. Although they're same age as yours, you are sure and certain about your sins. You only have a suspicion about their sins. So therefore, they're still better than you. If you look at people from that perspective, you'll find them to be better than you, and you'll be able to respect them. So what does this Farsh Aza do? This Farsh Aza gives us and equips us with the best of the akhlaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began this ayat by Fi'l Amr, wa'tasimu. It's not a recommendation, it's Fi'l Amr. Akhlaq are important. So well, sometimes we say, how can we apply the akhlaq of Aimma? That's where we are wrong. Aimma were not these figures which we cannot relate to. And they should never be considered like that, superficial angels type figure where we cannot relate to them. Oh, they're masoom, so how can they be our real role models? No, they are your role models. The fact that Allah sent them like bashar to you, like humans, so they can live life like you do. You eat, you drink, you get married, you have children, and all these things that you do in the world, so they could be perfect role model for you. But I get it, sometimes it's very difficult for us to say, well, how can I have the akhlaq of Anbiya? Well, we can definitely adopt the akhlaq of ulama and scholars and people like you and I. who are غير معصوم, can't we? I'll conclude with this one story for you. I'll see how much is your interest with the sound of your salawat. You are awake. Inshallah, we'll conclude soon. You heard of the name of Mullah Mehdi Naraqi. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi, known for his book on akhlaq. One of the books that is taught in Hawza Ilmiya, one of the best books on akhlaq for beginners, which has been translated into English as well. Jami'us Sa'adat, a collector of felicities. You can find it on, online and PDF, and you can read it. One of the best books on akhlaq for beginners. It's taught in the Hawza Ilmiya. He wrote this book called Jami'us Sa'adat, a collector of felicities. His son, Mullah Ahmad Naraqi, came, who wrote a book called Mi'raj Sa'ada, the peak of felicity. So the father wrote collector, son wrote peak. Father lived in a time of Sayyid Baharul Ulum, who was the marja of the time in Najaf. He received this book, Jami'us Sa'adat. It was a small book, not that lengthy, 120, 130 pages. He read it cover to cover, kissed the book, and he said, I wish I meet the author of this book. Now, of course, at that time, it was not easy to travel. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi was in Iran, and Baharul Ulum, he was in Najaf. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi finds an opportunity to go for ziyarat. Now, when he comes to Najaf, because he's already a very, high figure alim, all the ulama of Najaf go see him. So, just to put it in perspective, in today's terminology, let's say I'll give the name of two of the Maraja, Ayatollah Khamenei and Ayatollah Sistani. We know both of these, right? All the children know the names of these two Maraja. Imagine Ayatollah Khamenei goes to Najaf. You know what will happen? All the Maraja and all the ulama will go see him. He wouldn't have to go visit all the Maraja. They'll go visit him. Vice versa, if Ayatollah Sistani goes to Qom, all the scholars will come and see him. That's how it's done in Hawza. So, Mullah Mehdi Naraqi arrives. All the scholars, great scholars, come and see him. Who doesn't come to see him? Sayyid Baharul Ulum. Snubs him, right? Cold shoulder. He said, that's okay. Syed is busy man. He's probably busy teaching. And so it's okay. I don't mind. What I'll do is I'll go visit him myself. He said, this is unprecedented, but okay. So Sayyid Baharul Ulum was giving a dars. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi walks in, sits down. When an alim walks in, when I'm giving a lecture, when an alim walks in, or usually when you see and Maulana walks in, what happens? We stop the speech. We say, please send salawat. And until the alim comes, please come and sit over here. You keep sending salawat, just out of respect. Sayyid Baharul Ulum did none of that. Paid no attention. Mullah Mehdi Naraqi came, sat down, just right where he was sitting down. He didn't ask him to come forward. Continued with his speech, his dars, concluded the dars, a very formal, or, very, just for formality, salam alaik, and goodbye. People saw that. They could see it. You see an alim, it comes up, you sit with them, you talk to them, you give them a hug, all that stuff. Snubbed him. So Mullah Mehdi Naraqi leaves. People saw that. And they're like, what happened to Sayyid Baharul Ulum? He doesn't have these sort of akhlaq. He's known for his akhlaqiyat. Now Mullah Mehdi Naraqi goes for the ziyarat of Atabat in Karbala, Samarra, and after weeks he comes back to Najaf. He said, let me go see Sayyid Baharul Ulum again. People tell him, why do you want to do this? Last time, did you see how he treated you? And you still want to go and see him? He said, well, Sayyid Buzurgwar, he's busy, he's marja, I want to go see him anyway. Now, when they announced that Sayyid Mehdi Naraqi is coming to see Sayyid Baharul Ulum, Sayyid Baharul Ulum goes out of the house waits on the street, barefoot, without amama, receives Mullah Mahdi Naraki, brings him, sits them down on the mimbar, and himself sits on the floor. And he said, speak to us, give us some wa'az, and give us some, advices. Now, people see this complete different attitude. Last couple of times, he didn't go see him first. When he came to see him, he snubbed him. And now all of a sudden, what's going on? Is he making up for all that? People questioned. Syed Baharum answered. He said, this man right here, I have great respect for him. He wrote a book called Jami' Saadat. Best book on akhlaq. Talks about all the akhlaqiyat and the ethics and morals you need to know. I wanted to test if what he wrote in the book was for others or he himself implies that onto his zat. He said, when I treated him like this, which he should have reacted in a way where he should have insulted me, but instead he continued and persisted with his good akhlaq, and he wanted to come and see me anyway. That shows whatever he's written in the book is not just for others, it's for himself as well. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what I say from the mimbar is not just for you. I should be implementing that in my life before I can ask anyone else to do so. I've taken enough of your time. There's so much other stuff that I wanted to speak about, but inshallah, I'll save that for another opportunity that I get in future. 11th of Muharram is one of the difficult, continue to be the third most difficult night for Ahl Haram. Shab-e Ashur was tough for them. Roz Ashur was the peak of difficulty. And then 11th of Muharram is another difficult one. You know what happened on the day of Ashur? After Imam was martyred, and his was the only head that was severed right away. And that head was given to Khuli to go ahead and take it to Kufa right away, to give it to Amir, to show that as a sign of our victory. And then, as the women were watching, what did they do? They were not done just by killing. They put down the bodies of Shuhada, lined them up, and then they asked the horses and the horsemen to trample the bodies. First they killed them, then they severed their heads, and then they trampled their bodies. Where do you see this? This is not Islam. Rasulullah, hadith of Rasul says, even if a dog is killed, you should not place anything on top of it, let alone a mu'min, let alone someone who's nafs muhtarama. You should not place anything heavy on them. You should not speak loudly in their presence. But these are the family of Rasulullah. Janab Zainab had to witness this with her own eyes. After all this was done, then comes the Hukum Nama of Ibn Ziyad to Bisar Saad. Umar Saad says that you will all be brought to Kufa as captives. The chains were brought, but before the chains were brought and put on, they were sent these horses and these camels without any saddles. These women who never traveled without the carriages, for the first time, they would be mounting on horses and camels without saddles. Forget about the carriages. As these men tried to help these women and the children, Janab Zainab stopped them. Zainab said, don't move an inch. We will take care of ourselves. Now there's no Abbas to help them out. Now there's no Hussein. Janab Zainab probably remembered the scene when they were leaving the city of Medina. When they were leaving the city of Medina, what had happened? Janab Imam Hussein was witnessing all of this, watching over all of this, as each lady was brought out in complete hijab, brought and escorted by few of the Jawaid, the feet of Imam Zainul Abidin. Ajrukum Allah. But then came the turn of Zainab. Zainab had helped everyone, but how is she going to go ahead on top of this camel? Janab Zainab must have looked around towards Furat, toward Hussein, but somehow she must have managed herself on top of the camels. As this qafla departed, on the very next day they arrived in the city of Kufa. Kufa is not far away from Karbala. You have been to Kufa, you have been to Najaf, and you've been to Kufa as well. Then they traveled one day, and in one day they arrived in Kufa. But the arrival of Kufa was not easy for Zainab either. As they arrived in the city of Kufa, what was being thrown at them? The sadaqah was being thrown at them. People were lined up to witness what has happened. This caravan, they said a rebel had stood up against Amirul Mu'mineen. He was killed in Karbala and his family was captive, and now they're being brought in. Had no idea who these people are. Janab Zainab tells the young children from refrain from eating anything. As they move forward, this lady comes forward. She says, I know you're not taking sadaqah, but what I have brought for you is not sadaqah. There are some chadars that I have brought for you. I see that you don't have any veils. And I have brought some dates as well, because seems like you are hungry and thirsty as well. Janab Zainab then allowed, who was this? This was Habiba. Who is this Habiba? She used to be the student of Zainab. In the 40th year after Hijrah, when Amirul Mu'mineen was martyred in this very city in Kufa, Zainab was living here and she was teaching Quran. One of the students was Habiba. She hears, she says, while I give this hadiyah to you, which is not sadaqah, I want your children to make dua for me. She said, what kind of dua do you want? He said, I want you to make dua that what happened to you does not happen to my family. And he says, Ilahi Ameen. Oh children, make dua for her. The children said, Ilahi Ameen. He said, the way you've been made captives, may none of our family members are ever made captives like this. The children said, Ilahi Ameen. And then she asked out of curiosity, where are you guys from? Janab Zainab responded, she said, we're from Medina. Upon hearing the name of city of Medina, she inquired further. She said, where in Medina? Janab Zainab said, this place. She said, do you inquire why? Is there interest in Medina for you? She said, how can it not be? My Mawla Hussein lives in Medina. My princess Zainab lives in Medina. Upon hearing these words, Zainab said, oh lady, what's your name? She said, my name is Habiba. He said, how do you know Zainab and Hussein? She said, how can I not know them? They're my Mawla and they're my prince and princesses. Upon hearing that, Zainab said, if you saw them, will you recognize? She said, what kind of question is this? Of course, I'll recognize my Mawla. Zainab then said, will you recognize Zainab? She said, yes, I will. Zainab removed the hair from her face. She said, oh, Habiba, this is Zainab for you. And if you want to do the ziyarat of Hussein, look on top of that spear. And that's where the head of Hussein is. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Ahlul-bayt alayhim wassalatu wassalam. O Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Matame Hussein.